But I was like, hey, welcome to the Friday. Welcome to the Friday Night Mix Show. It's your boy Fola and it's your girl Lami, and we're coming live to you from Calgary, ladies and gentlemen.
You don't know
It's
where I am. Don't be saying I'm in Calgary. Understand?
you're in Calgary now. I can see your geolocation just right behind you. I see. I follow up. I follow up. I see
Hmm.
everywhere you are. How are you doing today, Lami?
I'm fantastic. It's funny how I've done quite a bit today. Let's just put it that way. So it's
How are
been
you,
a
Abby?
day, but yeah, I'm excited to do this. So let's go. It's a
I'm
very,
excited.
it's a
Yeah, I'm
very
excited.
interesting topic.
It
That
is.
we're
It
going to be
is.
talking
It
about
is. It's something that
today.
a lot of people don't put their minds to it because, like,
Mm,
it's Calgary. It could
mm,
never be. There could never be anything. Yada
mm,
yada yada. But it is an exciting day and time, and
mm.
I'm also excited to bring um, someone that I respect a lot in the community here, and that's why I'm wearing cap for her. As the chief that I am, so that when I bring her on, no, you just remember it's just a door. That's all that it means. How are you? How was your week? Just me.
This week was quite a week, but it's good, especially when you're doing business, right? It's quite a lot. So, like people say, you are the social media manager, you are the accountant, you are the CSR manager, you are the marketing person, you
True.
know, and then there's the
True.
functional bit of whatever business you're in, right? Which is your
True.
actual business. There's also that part as well. So yeah, it's been fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You fundamentally do everything. But it's just for a time. I'm sure with time you would be able to also upskill and
Yeah.
then become a boss of your own. Everyone who's got the Fortune 500 company today sure didn't start like that. They all started with just that dream. And keep holding on to your dream, sister. You will be there.
What's this? What's Who has you?
I'm trying to psych you now and inspire you. You refuse to be inspired. Well, what can I do? What can I do?
Motivational speaker. Aspire to perspire.
I aspire to perspire and inspire never to retire.
Right, right.
All right. Remember, it's the Friday Night Mix Show. If you're watching right now, if you're watching and you're not watching live, please don't forget to also like and share and subscribe. And we're excited to have, our guest, like we said earlier. Remember that you can always tell a friend to tell a friend and leave a comment, leave your likes, and leave your shares. Thank you so much for joining. Any story in the news before bring in our beautiful and most revered guest? Any story in the news? Anything for
What
us?
I saw was I saw in the news. So there's this guy back home in Nigeria. You know him. Sanusi is an emir.
The
They
former CBN
recently,
governor.
yeah, the former CBN governor. So
Okay.
he was reinstated. Apparently, they said he was reinstated, and then I see another news saying that the court did not, grant his reinstatement. I'm like, okay, so I thought it was supposed to be church and state. What's going on here? Like
Hmm.
I didn't quite get that bit. It was so interesting. But one of the things I found interesting was the particular scene where he was coming from wherever. It looked like he was at the airport, and you should have seen the way people. I was like, oh wow, okay, see the respect. People were just bowing to him. There were different memes and all sorts of things that were put together just based on that particular video. It was just interesting.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Hmm.
it was a fun one. Yeah, it was fun to
So
see.
he was reinstated as the emir.
As the emir, and then
Okay.
somebody was saying that the court said, like they forestalled the reinstatement and said it was not, like it was null or something. I didn't quite get them. Like, okay, Nigeria, I've never really understood some of the things that happen in my country. I love my country, no
Hmm.
doubt about it, but sometimes I'm confused. Let's put it that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. And it's a constant state of confusion, really.
Tell me about
One I have to say. People don't like people who speak to power. So
it.
once you speak truth to power, it becomes you become the enemy of the state, and they will try everything in their power to make sure that things don't go right for you. But the guy keeps speaking his mind, if you like it or not,
Mm-hmm.
and everything he says and everything he keeps saying remains the truth, right? Like it's just fact. He doesn't have any axe to grind with anyone. And people don't realize that you get in and out of power. Power is always in a flux state. It's never constant. So you might be in bed with someone in power today. Who knows whether you won't be tomorrow, right? So, but he remains constant, and that's why people respect him, right? A lot of people would rather have that respect rather than the lies and all of that they give to you.
I think
All
you're a
right.
politician. Well done.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of ease because he just says it the way it is, right? He doesn't care. You remove
Mm,
me as CBN governor, fine. You remove me as emir, I'll still listen. There are, I would say there are two types of power, but
mm,
there are more. But for me, there's the soft power, and then there's the one that comes with title, right? So the one that comes title is that okay, you're the president of the country. That's your title. Doesn't mean people respect you because you're the president. Because if you're not doing the right thing by the people are not going to love you or respect you. But
mm.
you might not be the president. You might not have any position. But when you speak, people listen. In fact,
You
when
have
you speak,
influence.
the authorities themselves they are scared.
Mm,
People like Wale Soyinka, when they speak, you have to listen. You have no choice. So so that's why I respect him because it doesn't have to be the emir or CBA governor. When he speaks, he's speaking truth. He talked about NNPC, LNG, and all the corruption and all that.
mm.
Let's come back to, although today's topic is not actually happy. It's not a happy topic
That's
too,
awesome. Yeah.
because I was doing
Yeah.
some research and I found out that wow, this is what's going on here in I just based my topic my research on Calgary. I didn't even go I didn't even go as far as anything, but I just did it and it was scary. I'm sure our guest that we're bringing on the show tonight, she's gonna have more to say concerning this. So let's just dive straight into it. Let me bring my big mom and my sister. She's the founder and executive director of Ruth House. That's an emergency shelter and resource center for immigrant families that are experiencing domestic violence in the community. She founded this beautiful non NGO in February 2022, and she's been the executive director since then with a small team of 10 people. Roots House has served over 500 families and responded to over 7,000 calls in 2 years for help, providing emergency shelter, cultural programs including peer support, trauma counseling, and legal and language assistance. Please help me make welcome the one and only Mrs. D. Adekugbe.
Thank you.
It is with the Jesus love and every other kind of love and Friday night mix love that we used to welcome you, ma'am. To
Thank you.
why is this thing jingling continuously for you? I think
Because you always have different things with you. Even
it
the thing
really
is,
like it really likes you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
We're
you're
glad to
very
have you.
welcome.
Lami, this one
Yeah,
that has smiley
anyhow.
smiley. You see?
What is it? What
This
were
one
you
that
going
has
to
smiley smiley. Yeah, go with the question. Go with the first question. Because the way
It was
you're
not even going to be a question. It was just recognition. Do you understand? It was just recognition.
okay.
So I had the privilege of watching one of your shows, not your show, but like lecture, if you will, that you gave at UIB.
Okay.
You were one of the speakers. I can't remember what year. So I watched the replay, and you told your story and the reason behind what you do, and it was really captivating. I'm pretty sure
Mm.
you're going to do that here today, and maybe I know we don't have enough time, but tell us a little bit about yourself and all of that, and I'm sure that our viewers will be captivated because for that, it is quite a story.
It is quite a story, right?
Yeah,
Oh, she's always inspired me. So I
yeah, yeah.
yes, ma. Go ahead, ma.
No, thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here and I'm glad to be a part of your show and to be able to contribute to, the wonderful community that we all belong to. So I'm so happy to be here. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank,
both of you.
thank you, thank you. So, like we said, for like you're on mute.
I actually muted myself. I wanted, I thought she was just going to tell us a little bit
About ourselves, right?
about
Because
Okay,
herself. Right?
I can
that's
I can
usually
tell
the way
them.
to start, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So my name is Diade Kugbe. I'm a pastor. I'm an advocate, and I'm also someone that loves to work with people, that loves to network, that loves to support. I've been in Canada for coming up to 20 years. I have 5 kids. I'm praying for grandbabies. You know, my kids are gonna kill me.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
And well, they need to get married first.
The will.
And I've been the executive director and founder of Ruth House for the last 2 years. We're 25 months old, and
Uh,
before that, I was working in the non-for-profit. I was pastoring, and while also running several businesses and serving in the community.
Mm,
that's beautiful.
I
fantastic.
wear many hats.
You wear many hats, right? Yeah, absolutely. Like I've seen you. I've met you where you came to do naming ceremony. I met you where you preached. I met you where you came to just have fun with us at at parties in the community. I've met you in church concerts. You're
Okay, so
everywhere.
far we
I've
get
met
it.
you in
I've met her in
Yoruba.
a lot of places. Okay, so we get it.
Hey,
Abi?
Jesus Christ!
Yes, right.
I, leave me alone. Let me big up my mom. So, what made you dive into starting an NGO? All right, especially one for emergency shelter for women and children.
Yeah.
That's such a long story, but I'll try to abbreviate it. So
Mm,
we officially launched Ruth House just after COVID in 2022. I was going towards retirement, and I wanted to retire and slow down and just go
mm,
and bother my kids in the different countries that they live in and just live off my kids.
mm,
But I really felt that there was more work that I needed to do. So
mhm,
rather than, going off into the sunset, like I had planned to take 6 months off and travel, and just do
wow.
nothing because I'd worked for over 40 years. So I really, but, God was calling me to do something deeper. He said it was time to go
Mm,
deeper, launch out deeper. So we started
mm,
Roots House. But prior to that, during COVID, I was preaching against and speaking against the shutdown, the lockdown, and why it was dangerous for a lot of women to stay locked down, stay home.
mm,
How that stay home order wasn't safe for, a lot of women because of, they were exposed to domestic violence. The children were exposed or, experiencing domestic violence. So
mm,
I was speaking out against that all during COVID and asking people to reach out for help. And from there, we were helping a lot of women, putting them up in Airbnbs, going to the home, taking them out of
mm,
those violent homes and putting them in hotels, with people in the community and just really taking care of them. But
mm,
before that, I'd always, I've been a preacher for over 25. My son is 29 for almost 30 years.
mm,
And I've always preached against, abuse. I've always preached against, people that were always, that couldn't find their own identity in themselves, that were looking to find identity in other people. But even prior to that, I myself have been a victim of domestic violence. So my life started, 6 months in a domestic violence shelter. I'd been, living with a boyfriend that was very violent, ended up in the hospital on New Year's Day. And from there, the police took me to a shelter. I spent 6 months there. From there, when I came out of the shelter, I changed my identity. I went from Adiola, to D, to be, just to hide and not to be found because I had come out of a gang life and, a very drug driven life. And I wanted a new identity. So when the police offered me that, I took it and started
mm,
life all over again. And it took me 6 months to heal. And when I healed, I started going to church. And then from there, I really started, God started showing me lives that needed to be saved. I was meeting lots of people that needed help. And from there, I just always preached against it, stood up against, women that were living in abusive homes, abusive
mm,
relationship, toxic relationships, and always told people that you are more than, what you give yourself credit for. And that there is, that when we talk about the grass is greener on the other side, it really is when it comes to abuse.
Mm,
There is a better life outside. And the first thing I started was an organization called I Choose Me Over Abuse. And
mm,
I always tell people, if you continue to stay in in a abusive environment and an abusive relationship, abusive home, you're choosing that person over you, and you're
mm.
placing more value on that person who's beating you up, who's verbally abusing you, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, sexually abusing you. You're choosing them every day you stay there. So it's time to choose you over
That's it.
abuse.
Mm.
So that's really how we started, and then we changed the name to Ruth House when we opened the first, ethnocultural emergency shelter here in Calgary for women of African descent. To be able to leave the home, leave that place, and find shelter, find safety, and find protection.
Oh, that's a powerful story that you told us there, Ma. And I now see why it's really personal for you, right? Like it's a journey that you went through, and God is using you to like bring people out of it also. And I always say, the ministry that we are called to, it's a ministry that you cannot do effectively except you have the Paul experience, right? Where you move from Saul to Paul. You won't do it effectively if it's not something that, and that's why I see the drive. I mean, I've been asking myself, I'm preaching it. I've been asking myself, why are you driven so much concerning this? And so now I see it.
Mm.
Now I see it. The police responded to 20,000 domestic violence calls each year in Calgary alone. What do you think is the reason for this huge amount of domestic violence in the city?
There is a number of reasons, and it depends on which, what you're looking at. For immigrants, one
Mm,
of the main causes is what we call situational violence.
mm,
The situation that you find yourself in. A lot of, the statistic tells us that 1 in 3 immigrants, are facing domestic violence. And that's because when people arrive in Canada, they forget that even though they come into a land filled with milk and honey, they're going
mm,
to lose access to a lot of things that they had back home. And
mm.
so they lose access to employment. They lose access to community.
Community.
They lose access to even the weather. They lose access to a lot of things,
Mm,
and they end up in a situation that they've never found themselves before. And rather than working together, we now find couples working against each
against
other
each other.
because they are isolated, they are alone, they have no family around, no community around, they
Mm,
have no jobs. They're struggling with housing, language, so many things. So when it comes to immigrants, it's mostly situational violence. People that you would never think would ever,
mm,
abuse their spouse or their children are now facing charges because of the pressures that they're under, because their back is against the wall, because the mental health their mental health and all of that. Apart from the immigrants, when we look at Canada generally, Alberta has the third highest rate of domestic abuse in
true.
the country. Why? Because again, we find, as prosperous as we are still struggling. When you look at the housing crisis, when you look at unemployment, when you look at so many things that is happening around us, a lot of us don't know how to handle it. We're not equipped to handle pressures. We are in a generation where people are entitled. They have that entitlement spirit, and they don't know what it is to struggle. They don't know what it
Mm,
is to, to live without. And so we opt out for the easiest way.
mm,
If it doesn't work out, just get out. There's more fish in the sea.
mm,
If it's stressing you out, get out of that relationship. It's not worth it. Our generation, and I may be a little bit older, but I find that the generation of today don't know what it means to, stick at things. They don't know what it is to work at things. And instead, they're turning all of their anger, frustration on their spouses, on their partners, on their families. And that is what is spiking abuse in our community, in our
Mm.
province.
Mm. Lami.
Yeah, I mean, it took me. I've been thinking about I mean, while you were talking, I was just following along, and I had so many questions. Just from what you said. I mean, first off, great work what you're doing. 500 families that you've helped, and that's amazing. That's life's touched, life's changed, and really beautiful. But what I find interesting is what when you were kind of talking about when Fola gave that statistics, and then you said it was situational. So the question then is, are you saying that somebody who would not usually abuse their spouse from their home country, because I don't want to assume that every immigrant is from Nigeria, right?
Yeah.
We're from different places. Not We can be African, and people I've seen people who moved there from the UK and other countries besides Africa. So you were not abusive, and then you got here and became abusive, because I've not really heard that story. You're in the field, so you see more, you know more, you have more statistics than me. But I'm just saying that what I've seen more often, or
Mm,
in the small statistics that I have, are people who were actually abusive back
yes.
home or from wherever they were, and then it got here and it was exacerbated rather by situations, which I get. But usually you'll find that they already had that
That
tendency,
Tendency.
because everybody
tendency.
gets here and it's different. I mean, we're in a different terrain, everything is different.
Mm.
Things are coming at you, we're all shocked,
Mm.
left,
Yeah.
right, and center. So I'm just wondering, why then do you resort to violence if it's not already what you were doing? Because back home, people will hear about it and say, "Oh, don't worry, just keep praying." If you're people of faith, they say, "Keep praying."
Mm.
At some point he'll get better or something.
Mm.
But here, somebody will say, "You call 911." Like, don't play that. So I'm just wondering, what do you think? Do you think it was something that was already happening, and then they came to Canada, it just got worse? Or do you think it's possible that you were not even abusive at all, and somehow Canada brought out an abusive part of you?
It's all of the above. You have those that, don't forget, we also have, the way we were brought up in Africa.
Hmm.
The way we were brought up in Africa is different to the way people are, raised here. So
Mhm.
in Africa, you would say that everything that we did back home was abusive. The way we shout and scream at each other can be abusive. The way we, that patriarchal environment that we lived in could be termed abusive. The way we raise our children, I'll give you a slap across the face if you don't sit up,
Right.
could be termed abusive. The way husband treat their wives, even on the movies, even in television, could be termed abusive. The way
Mm.
most of us were raised taught us how to be abusive.
Hmm.
Equipped, it was embedded in us that,
Hmm.
hold on a minute, this thing has been normalized. It's
Hmm.
I was raised that way. If you were, Lami, if you were to tell your girlfriend, oh, my husband slaps me, my boyfriend slaps me, or my wife slaps me,
Hmm.
they would tell you, oh, well, sorry. I'm sure he loves you. I'm
Hmm.
sure she loves you. I'm sure
Hmm.
he or she didn't mean it. They would
Hmm.
justify it. You
Hmm.
pack your bags and you go back home and say, Mommy, Daddy, this is what's happening. They will send you back. And they will say, there are other women that are dying to be in your position. Other men
Hmm.
do this. People justified, abuse, and they've normalized it. And so it's been passed down. The same way we pass faith down, we
Hmm.
also pass abuse down. And we grow up in that. And so, we've been taught that the way to deal with things is this way.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so we don't know any better.
Mm.
Hmm.
There's those people like, that's how they were raised. That's what they've been taught. You're taught as a man that, when you get married, make sure you handle your wife. Make sure you know how to handle your home. You're not a man if your wife walks all over you. If you're in the kitchen, I've seen movies whereby the husband is in the kitchen. As soon as the mother-in-law is coming, he runs out and the wife runs in the kitchen. You know, we've been raised to think that it's part of our culture, it's part of our who we are. And then, so you have those that's the only way they know how to deal with pressures. That's the only way they know how to deal with situations. And that's the only way that they can show authority in their home and in their relationships. Yeah. So those ones, it's been embedded in them. It's ingrained in them. So when they come to Canada, they think they can still carry on in that same mindset.
Right.
And they forget that in Canada, even the dog has rights. Have you tried and kick a dog and you see how the law will come down on you? Everybody has rights that people did not have back home. Everybody has it here. So it's hard for someone that has grown up in, as a perpetrator to adjust in Canada. Because, I had someone say to me, "Oh, I didn't beat my wife," and I'm like, "But the way you're screaming and shouting and calling them idiot, foolish, crazy woman, that's abusive."
It
He said,
is.
"Is it?"
No, it's not.
But you understand what I mean, that to him it's not abusive because that's the way he grew up. That's what he's done all his life. That's how, that's the environment that he has. And then you have those who have never been in an abusive relationship. And so when they get to Canada, the pressures of life hits them.
That's right.
And then they recall how things are done back home. And
Wow.
then they themselves, who has never even stepped on a fly, based on their situation, their environment, now turn to abuse. Now let's not forget that abuse is not just physical violence.
Right. True.
I was
True.
going to say that. Yeah.
True.
And so that's another thing that we needed to talk about, that where, it's not just because somebody has a broken nose or a black eye or, somebody's got a cut lip, that's the only form of abuse. Yeah, there are many different forms of abuse, like, verbal abuse, like the way people just curse each other. I mean, I'm from Nigeria. You go to Nigeria, the market, the streets, everybody is abusive.
It's rain of
When
curses.
you want to, banter with somebody and play around, it's even with abuse. I had a friend one time, like when we get on the phone with each other, the first said, "Stupid, God, how are you? What's going on? How foolish."
I don't have friends like that. I just
But the thing is that when you get here, we're now being educated that if somebody is calling you names, they are verbally abusing you.
Lami abuse you.
Yeah. Do you also know that if you are married, if you are married and you
Yeah.
have a wife and and she refuses to have sex with you and you force yourself to have sex with her and she
Yeah.
said no, even if she said no once and then she yielded, that is sexual abuse.
That's
That's
correct.
statutory rape.
That's
In
correct.
I work with a lot of men that will say, "I paid bride price. She's my property."
What are you saying? Bride price makes her what?
In Canada.
Wow.
And I say to them, that's in Nigeria. In Canada, you're going to jail for
Even in
that.
Nigeria, I think now there are laws passed now that you can't even do it.
Okay.
You
Yes.
know. So, I mean, very interesting conversation. I never knew we could even laugh in this, because what I read was really sad. Listen, if you're watching right now, please leave your comment, leave your questions for Pastor D, and make sure you're sharing and you're liking. Also, or give us love, thumbs up. Just let us know how much or how good we are doing. Ma, so many questions for me here.
Go ahead. I will try.
Something hasn't left my head yet that she talked about. Yeah, doing say she likes my cup. It's for Pastor D. So I wore it for Pastor D today. Like I said, when you
I'll
bring
reveal your secrets now.
when you you're verbally abusing me, Lami. When you have a chief coming on the show, you have to respect her. This is what we wear. When I wear this outside, I noticed that the other tribes are like, "Oh, it's nice." Surely the Caucasians are like, "Oh, it's nice." Anyway, that's an aside.
Mm. 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 Mm.
What I wanted to ask, what hasn't left my mind is the conversation you had about, you having a personal experience too, right? And I wanted to know, I'm always interested in knowing how you were able to get through that phase of your life,
Mm.
right? Because it's a very tough journey. It's a journey where I've seen people get into the drug world, the mob world. It's tough. In fact, the only time I've heard is probably the person gave their life to Jesus and they were able to transition, which was what happened to you also.
Mm.
But walk us through exactly how you got into it in the first place and how
Mhm.
God was able to take you out of it.
Mm. Mm.
Oh, so I'll tell you a little bit about my my story. I mean, it's in my book, my first autobiography. So my dad brought me to England when I was 9 years old, put me in a boarding school. My dad was in politics back then, and so
Mm,
he went back to Nigeria and he said he was going to go bring the rest of my siblings one by one to to England. That never happened for over 20 years. So for several years, I was left alone and moving from family to family, friends to friends.
wow.
Every 6 months, I lived at different houses, different uncles and aunties, quote unquote, different guardians, friends of friends, families of families.
Mm,
And so I went through life, really with a lot of emotional baggage. I was very broken. And then by the time I was 16, I ended up on the streets. I was involved in gangs, I lived in Brixton. If you know Brixton back then, South London, it was a drug and gang
mm,
infested, you know, um,
mm,
community back then. So in order to stay alive on the streets, you really
mm,
had to belong somewhere. And so I lived my life through there. And then I went from shelter to shelter, homeless shelters, and I was living off the streets. I remember one day sleeping on the bus overnight, because I didn't have anywhere to sleep.
mm,
And so by the time I was, 17, by the time I was 17, I ended up in a youth homeless shelter. And from there, I met this wonderful, amazing guy who had just come out of who had just come out of jail, out of prison for drugs. And it was a mixed shelter for men and women. So, he was so fine. He was so fine looking. He was, Jamaican, handsome guy. Every girl in the shelter was after him. And he
mm,
chose me. And I think because I was the craziest person there, I was not afraid of death. I was always, involved in fighting and gang war. And so I wasn't afraid of anything. I was that harsh, that hard. And we
mm.
started dating. And then when I got my own apartment, he moved in with me. And so we were living together and he was very jealous and very, possessive. Now,
Mm,
when you have two broken individuals
mm.
that come together,
It's a recipe
it's
for disaster.
broken. It's
Mm,
broken. Broken plus broken equals shattered.
Mm.
right.
So there was no way we were good for each other, and
Mm,
things just got worse. And I remember one New Year's Eve, we went to Trafalgar Square for New Year's celebration, just like Times Square, the
mm,
countdown. And we were all celebrating, and on the count of, and on midnight, everybody was hugging and kissing and just saying Happy New Year. So the next, we went home and everything was fine. I thought everything was fine. I was telling one of my girlfriends on the phone, oh, yes, we went to Trafalgar Square for New Year. Everybody was hugging and kissing, and just all he heard was what? Kissing and
listen.
hugging. So he thought that I'd been cheating on him. So he
Oh,
come flying down, down the stairs and kicked me with his foot all the way down the stairs.
Mm.
oh,
You know? So I ended up in emergency in South London. And from there, I had broken lips, broken bones, everything. I was just broken. New Year's Day, nobody knew where I was.
oh.
Nobody knew anything about me. Yeah. And I said to myself, I could be dead this New Year's Day and nobody would know because nobody knew where I was living. I've been on the streets for a few years, and I'm
Mm,
like, nobody would know. Nobody would look for me. And so the police came to me in the hospital and they said, "What do you want to do?"
mm,
And I said, "Well, I don't know. My life back there is all I know. All my friends, many of them had babies by the time they were 15, 16, 17. That
mm,
was the community. So I don't know anywhere else. I don't know anything else." and they offered me a way out.
Mm.
They offered me a shelter. They offered me a support system in the community, and I took it. So
Mm.
the police escorted me back to my apartment. My boyfriend had left, ransacked everywhere, stole whatever he could take. And I picked up a few things and I went into the shelter. And I went in there as Adiola Joseph, Adiola Oladuni Joseph.
Mm.
And 6 months, and no lie, no lie, this is God, as God is my witness. I
Mm.
spent 6 months looking for God, looking
Mm.
for a way out. I needed to find a way out. I needed to know if there was life for me once I come out. And every day, 5 o'clock in the morning, God would wake me up to listen to a preacher on the radio. There was
Mm.
no alarm clock. I woke up by myself every morning at 5 a.m. just to listen to this Jamaican preacher.
Mm.
And that was how I got healed, spirit, soul, and physical body. And 6 months, it took me 6 months to get myself together, 6 months to build myself up, 6 months of faith, the word and praying the way that I knew how to pray,
Mm.
and
Mm.
just really getting counseling, getting help. And when I came out, I knew I had to help other people, especially Africans. And I remember, fast forward, 20 something years, on my 40th birthday, God had spoken to me and said, you need to go back and serve your people.
Mm.
And I really, just like Moses, I didn't know what that meant. All I knew was I needed to go back and, go back to my community, the African community. And I thought that meant preaching, but no, God said, no, I have work to you. There's a lot of broken people. There's a lot of
Mm.
brokenness in the church, brokenness in the community. And until they get healed, they really can't find God.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
So that's really how.
Wow. There's
That's
no way I can
interesting.
ask this question. Tell us how you met your husband.
My husband, it's his birthday today. Happy birthday.
Yes, I was gonna say that.
Happy birthday, sir.
Happy birthday, Pastor Ben.
You know, the first day, all of this is in my book. The book I wrote my biography about 13 years ago. And it was the first day that I came out of the shelter. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yes,
Yes, please.
absolutely.
Please
The
go on.
first day that I came out of the shelter and I went to look for work, I went to look for a job, and I went to McDonald's, because they were hiring. And I said I was looking for a job as a hostess. And then there was this guy behind the burgers, flipping burgers.
Mm. Mm.
And he said to me that, the first day he saw me, he said he was going to marry me. And
Wow.
I'm like, hell no. I was saved, but my mouth wasn't saved. I was still
Is that
cursing.
how the process works? Ah, yeah. Your
My mouth
soul is
was
saved.
still, my
Your
mouth
mouth.
was still filthy. So he asked me out. I said no. Number one, I said
Mm.
I said you're too short. Number two, I said you have no money. You work in McDonald's.
Okay.
The youngest man I've ever dated was probably in his 30s as a
Mm.
teenager. That was a different life back then.
Mm.
So I said no. But then he said, you know what? Why don't you come to church? And church
Wow.
was how he grabbed me because I was looking for a church.
Mm.
My husband became my mentor,
Wow.
Mm.
and my
Wow.
husband was part of my healing and my recovery
Absolutely.
and my journey of faith. He was my
Abs-
youth pastor.
That's amazing.
Absolutely. What did he see? Did he finally explain to you why he just saw you and thought, I have to marry
I don't know, but he was. I don't know. He felt. He said God said to him he needed
you?
somebody like me. you know
Mm.
and I think because I'm way too independent, I'm way too I'm a
Mm.
go-getter.
Mm.
I know I know where I'm going, what I want. And he said God told him that before he could start ministry, he needed to marry, and he needed to find, and the wife was going to come to him.
Mm.
He didn't go looking, I came to him.
Wow, what a story. Lami, please.
Honestly,
Please.
it's so amazing. I don't know. I think what is amazing is the comeback. It's always about the comeback.
It is.
No. Very sad story. I think in my head about the scene where you described somebody shoving you down a flight of
Yeah.
stairs. That was so dangerous. That could have been it. But we thank God that we get to hear your story. You get to tell it yourself, and you've grown, healed from it. But the bit for me is the mental part. And I think that's the hardest work. For somebody who has not even gone through abuse, there's still the fight that you have to do in your mind, which is
True.
why we have so many self-help books that starts with the
Yeah.
mind. It's always about the mind, the mindset, the growth mindset, think and grow big, think and grow. There's so many books. Even the Bible will say, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So there is that bit about, like the mindset,
Mm.
and I love something you said in here when you talked about what the foundation used to be, or the project before I became Ruth House. I choose me over violence. I choose me over abuse. I choose me. But that bit, choosing you, it's so hard because when you go through what you've been through,
Mm.
it's like bashing someone's mind over and over,
Over again.
and then when you tell somebody they're worth something, they look at you and it's like, can you see me? Like, are you joking? And it's so hard for them to believe it when you tell them that they're worth it. So
Mm.
I'm pretty sure that's probably one of the things you do in, Ruth's house, to deal with the mind, because that's when they
Right.
can go out and be free and become better versions of themselves. How do you deal with that?
Joyce Meyer wrote a book called The Battlefield of the Mind,
Mm.
Absolutely.
and it's a daily battle, and you have to fight it. You have to fight your mind, from wandering off. You have to fight your mind from even just casting yourself down, pulling you down into a world that you don't want to go into. And when you come from an abusive background, it doesn't go away. You learn to live with it.
Mm.
You know,
Mm.
people, you heal, but I don't know if you have scars on your body. I burnt my skin 20 years ago. I've healed from it, but the
Mm.
scar is always there as a reminder.
Mm.
Right.
Mm.
You know, my abuse took place, over what, 30 odd years ago. But I still every day have to fight, certain things that will
Mm.
occur, that will trigger,
Mm,
that will take me back. Sometimes I will have flashback of what happened.
Mm.
I remember one time I said to my husband, we had a very, heated, conversation. And,
mm,
it was a very heated conversation. And I remember, I was so aggressive. And this is where a victim also becomes an abuser.
That's right.
mm,
Because
Mm.
I would break and throw everything in the house at him.
Mm.
Yeah. To try and get him to react. Yeah,
Mm.
so that I can get a true picture of him and know what I'm
Mm.
getting into. So I
Mm.
will try to set him up. Yeah, I want to know how you're going to deal with certain things. And I would remember he would always say to me, "I'm not that guy. I'm never gonna lay hands on you.
Mm.
I'm not that kind of person." You know, and sometimes when we fight, I'm like, okay, what is he going to do? How is he going to react? Yeah. So let me get there first before he gets there.
Mm.
You know, and in other times I will hear certain keywords that will trigger emotions in me. And the one thing that we all have to deal with as survivors of abuse is what we is that self-esteem. Yeah, that
mm.
self-confidence, because that's the first thing that is shattered.
Mm.
So
Mm.
now every day I'm like, I have to believe in myself. I have to believe that, I have to have faith in myself that I can do this. I can overcome this. I have to take it one day at a time. And every single day, block upon block, building by building, step by step, you
Mm,
make a conscious decision to choose you over your emotions, to choose you
mm,
over the flashbacks that you get, to choose today, to choose where you are now, your growth over everything you've come through.
mm,
Mentally, it's a fight. You're in a boxing ring and
mm,
you
All
have
the
to fight it every day. Yeah.
mm,
Even though
mm,
you're okay, you're healed, but you will always get little things. And if
mm,
you entertain it, if you entertain that little thoughts, it
mm,
becomes, bigger, and then it leads you to down that path of self-pity and,
mm,
and isolation. You don't want to have anything to do with anybody or relationship. You don't trust people. And
mm.
that is a path that none of us want to get to.
That's
mm.
the part that we don't want to get to. I mean, we've got questions here from our community, like we always do. Bolu Ebels, I don't know this man, but it looks like someone that it looks familiar to me. Bolu Ebels, thanks for the question. Says, reminds me, this is a quote actually, but I'll get to his question. Reminds me of the quote, hot people, hot people. People that are hot
Exactly.
would always hot people, right?
Mhm.
Before I ask Bolu's question, before I put it on screen, you had also said, I mean, something earlier about for 6 months, you would wake up in the morning at 5 a.m. to listen to God's word. That
Right.
was a way of healing you also.
Healing.
Because imagine if you had gotten out of the hospital immediately and you met your husband in that space, you would never. So I think part of the
Mm.
healing process
I
is
like
also either reading books, exposing yourself to spiritual books, and just allowing yourself to heal, because that's going to at least allow that wound to close up, even if the scar is still going to be there. Bolu's first question was, are there personalities that are predisposed to being abusive or attracting abusers? So do we have
that.
people who just naturally, maybe in their DNA,
Mm,
they're just abusive? I mean, we hear of serial killers, and you like you do the documentary, and like throughout their life, even while they were 4 years old, they were already killing maybe lizards or something. Is that
mm,
something that we are predisposed to, or is it something that just happens by learning?
I think, naturally, some of us are just attracted to certain things,
Mm.
mm,
based on the way we grew up,
We grew up.
mm,
based on our own experiences. Up until I met my husband, I was just attracted to bad guys. I was attracted to older men. I was attracted to a particular lifestyle that drew particular results for me
mm,
that were not good for me.
Mm,
And
mm,
then once my life, transitioned into the light, into another place, I was attracted to other things that were good
mm,
for me you
mm.
know so yes, we tend to attract, where we, what we want in life, or based, and also what we've gone through, because that's what we know.
mm.
True.
Environment.
Mm,
That's what we know. you
Mm,
know it's like, let me put it this way. Nigerians come to Canada, they're going to look for Nigerians.
true. In fact,
same as
the
me.
first day you see
Mhm.
Nigeria let's say you came in and you're at Airbnb and you didn't even have anybody. The first day you see a Nigerian in superstore or something, the first thing you want to do is to go hug there, like,
Mm,
We
Nigerian
are
speaking.
attracted to our
True.
environment, the way we grew up. We're
true.
attracted to what we're familiar with.
True. True. Hmm.
Uh,
Mm,
and
So
that
your
is why
point,
it's
yeah,
important,
go
the
on.
mindset, the shifting of the mind.
Exactly. Yeah.
The shifting of the mind is very important, and allowing yourself to shift your focus, shift your environment, so that it opens you up to other things in life, not just, what you're used to.
Mm,
mm,
that's so
mm,
deep. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
mm,
It was
mm.
so wow. I mean, I'm telling you, this is an amazing
There's
thing,
no
and
way
it
she's not
goes to
coming back.
show. I'm sorry.
There's no way she's not coming back on this show.
Honestly, like it's
It's
so
true.
amazing. And we can't get over the mental bit, the fight, and like you said, you know, um, not is about nature versus nurture. I think Bolo Adebels put that up, nature versus nurture. And I like what she said, because when he asked the question about, certain personalities that are predisposed, I started to go through the personality types in my head, because I do like those kind of things, right? And I started to think, okay, yeah, is it possible? But I like what you said, because that's the bit. It's about, yes, there's the nature bit, but there's also nurture. You know what I mean? Like, there's that nurture. Like, I met this particular woman one time, and we were going through a session together, and she told me, and we got close, and that's when she kind of opened up, and we started going through that session. And then she was like, that her husband usually abuses her, and you wouldn't see, you can't tell, like, it's not like it's written on the face, right? Like, it's not written anywhere on your body or whatever. She didn't look like it. She looked happy, like her life was together, and all of that important stuff. And then I asked her a question. I'm like, tell me about his father. Tell me about his upbringing. It turned out his father used to beat his mother. So I'm like, okay, so you see what we're dealing with here. So like, we become what we behold, right? Something like that. So I mean, I'm just saying you are spot on with regards to that nurture. So it's not just about, oh, I'm predisposed to this just because of who I am, or it's like what you see, what you saw rather growing up. It becomes more likely what you resort to. If you saw your parent handle arguments with slap.
Like that.
But we're a product of our environment.
True.
We are a product of our environment. We're a product of our upbringing. We are a product of what we are exposed to, whether you believe it or not.
Olu has one other question for us today. He says, for someone who goes back to their abuser over and over, how can one help?
I think, this is what I always tell people, it takes, there is, data shows us that it takes 7 attempts before a victim will leave a perpetrator, an abusive home. 7.
Wow.
7. And so we see it all the time in our office. We see it all the time, the work that we do. And it's because, you know what? It takes strength to walk away.
Walk away.
It takes strength when all you've known is a certain way of life, when your whole life is tied up in something, not just spirit, a soul, your finances, your children, your relationships, your friendships, your family, everything is tied to a marriage. To now say you're going to walk away.
Just walk away.
And start all over again. Do you know that it takes courage to walk away and start life again?
It does. It does. It's the reason why some people won't even leave their home country to immigrate to another country. Like, where do I start
Not
from?
easy. Yeah. Where do I start from? How do for someone who has never worked now, and what they've done is raise the children. Where do they start from?
Right.
For someone that I had a client. She doesn't even know how to operate a bank. She's never paid a bill. She left her father's house to go into marriage. So now she's starting all over again, and she's calling and saying, "Mama D, I need to get a house, but how do I even set up the everything that I need? I don't have a bank. Everything is tied up with my husband." You can't blame her, because again, our culture determines that everything is, the husband is the provider, the wife is the stay at home, she takes care of the children, the husband gives her the money for food and grocery pay, the husband handles everything. Yeah, there's still a lot of people in our community that don't even know what the husband earns, or what the property or the business, everything. They need money. Honey, I need money. Husband gives money. They don't care where it comes from. They don't even know, what the husband does. So to walk away takes courage. It takes planning. It takes effort. It takes lots of strength. And a victim can never walk away alone. She's going to need a community.
That's right. That's right.
Yes.
And when you don't have a community and you are alone, it's hard.
Mm.
Because, some people are better off, they'll tell you that I'm better off being in an abusive home than being alone outside with nobody.
That's
True.
true. That's
True.
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 So you
Sister
can't
Frankie.
judge people for that chooses to go back. You can never just judge anybody until you are in that situation
True.
yourself.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
true.
A lot
That's
of us will say, foolish man. How can he let a
never.
woman beat him?
Mm,
Foolish wife.
mm,
How can she keep going back to him? Sweetie,
mm.
you don't know what you can do until your back is against the wall.
Oh
That's
my
right.
God. Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh my God.
Absolutely.
So the
Absolutely.
only thing we tell people,
Mm.
be that natural support and have your door always open.
Open. Hmm.
No
That's it.
judgment, no question.
Mm.
If she comes to your house today and goes back home tomorrow because the husband called begging, let her go and tell her your bed is here if you ever need it.
Mm,
You use the word if, not when, because then they'll
Mm.
say,
I like
she
that.
already the
Mm.
language you're using as well. It's telling her that
mm,
that things are going to go bad,
Oh, yes.
but
Yes.
she's going back with optimism.
Hope. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm.
the only thing you, as a friend, a sister, a member of the community, always say, listen. Here's a spare key, just in case you ever need to get away for a few hours. Don't say in case you need to leave him.
mm,
Mm.
Here's a spare key to my house. Here's the code to my door.
mm, mm.
Always be there. Here is a phone in case you lose your phone, not in case he's trying to kill you. There are certain things you have to be careful of saying for
Mm.
them to accept the help.
Hmm.
Pastor
The
D.
language
Pastor
matters. Wow.
D. In
Wow.
fact, oh God, we've not even gotten to the prevention. Because
Yeah,
we're talking about domestic violence, right? We're talking about prevention. You talked a little bit about rehabilitation, which is what
Right.
you're
Right.
talking about.
Yeah.
About we
Yeah.
need to talk about prevention. Next week there is no show. Let me put you on the spot now, Pastor D. Check your itinerary. Can you come back 2 weeks from now, please? We need to continue this conversation. It's not a conversation that I will bring you back. I've told a lot of guests
I
that
would.
I'll bring them back, and we're bringing them back. But for yours, we have to bring you back the next because we need to talk about prevention and rehabilitation,
How do
right?
you even spot it? Yeah.
Exactly.
Prevention. Which is what
Prevention.
are the
How do you
red flags?
prevent
What do
it?
you look out for? Because it doesn't
Exactly.
just jump on you. There's certain
No.
things that you will see. Maybe the next thing they start to raise their voice. Next thing they are, like,
You get, and
Hey,
sometimes
you know,
it's not even, it might even be the, like she said, there might be the tendencies back home from where you come from, but you never
mm,
did it before, and then the pressure here is so high. What do you
mm,
do? How do you even prevent it
now
here
sort it out.
already in the marriage?
Yeah.
Right. So many
Mm,
questions around that,
let me
and
give you let me give you three quick ones.
quick
Prevention.
one.
right. Right.
Quick.
Right.
Number one, have a community around you. Don't do
Good.
life alone.
Mm.
Have a
Don't say
community
it's only
around
me
you.
and my wife, or only me and my husband. I don't
That
want to have
doesn't work.
friends.
Everybody likes to be alone until they're in trouble. Then they'll start looking for people.
Looking for people.
Never do life
Mm.
alone because when you were getting married, you didn't do it alone.
You call
Mm,
people to chop your rice.
mm,
Number two, when you start to see little bit of strife, ask for help.
Mm.
Don't wait until everything gets out of hand to now start looking for help. If you're constantly fighting and you can't seem to get stop yourself from arguing, go see a marriage counselor. Go see a professional. I'm a pastor. I love my pastors. We do great work, but sometimes
mm,
you just need a professional to help
mm,
you through certain things.
Mm.
Yeah. And number three, trust yourself.
mm,
Trust your instinct.
Mm.
Don't say,
Mm.
it's just my mind. Trust yourself. Get help. Get help.
Wow. So, um, Pastor D have agreed to come back 2 weeks from now. Yeah, so we'll bring you back to the part two of this conversation. We have to continue. Uh, but before we go, because the show is just an hour, oh, we have only 1 hour. Sorry, 1 minute left. We do have a game that we need to quickly play with you before we go. Yes, this game you have to answer 5 questions.
Oh,
Uh, if you get, is it 3 or 4? Lami, is it 3 or 4 questions that are?
Let's do three. It's Mama D.
Okay.
So let's.
Mama D, you have to get three questions right out of five. If you do, then you get we get to contribute to Ruth House.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's do.
Yeah. We get to give to Ruth House, and that way we let me share a testimony on this show. Since we started playing this game and
Time.
uh, we started since I mean our guests to give us 5 to 10 more minutes. Since we
Yeah.
started playing this game on the show, do you know that the doors have been opening so much that it's not even a joke. But I'll share it's another day for that testimony, really. So that's why on this show on Friday Night Mix, we would be contributing to whatever costs, whatever ideas that our guests that are taking their time to come on the show, we will be definitely giving. So are you ready for the question, Ma?
Yes, I'm ready. Let's go for Ruth's house. Let's do
We used to dance on this show. Oh, it is joining us. All right. So question one. Who is often referred to in the world of sport, in the sport of boxing, who is referred to as the greatest?
Muhammad Ali.
Muhammad Ali. Is that your final answer? Why are you clapping? Did I
That's
tell you
only my
that?
final answer. There's only one Muhammad Ali.
It's
So
my clap. I
that is
can
your
go inside.
final
Like,
answer. Are you certain that is your final answer? I'm going to
Yes,
give you
definitely.
options.
There's only one Muhammad Ali.
There are options, Muhammad D. There are options.
Option. The
So that
greatest,
is
you said.
options. The
The
greatest.
greatest.
Are you sure it's not
Muhammad
Messi?
Ali.
Are you sure it's not Messi?
Messi is a soccer player.
She's not boxing. Ladies and gentlemen, you were absolutely correct. Muhammad Ali. I float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. That is
Yes.
correct. You are correct. First answer is correct. Round of applause for you, ma'am. All right. Question 2. Which country is famous for its soccer team known as the Samba Boys? Option. The Samba
Samba
Boys.
Boys.
Correct. They are
Sorry, did you say the Samba Boys?
the Samba Boys. Which country is famous for its soccer team known as the Samba Boys?
No, Brazil. No, Portugal. Brazil.
There are options. You can explore your options.
What
Samba Boys.
Hold on. Samba. I
Samba.
think it's Samba.
Samba.
Brazil.
Is that your final answer?
Or Portugal. No, Brazil. Or Portugal.
Is that your final answer?
Yes, I'll go with Brazil. Yeah, I'm going with Brazil.
If you had gone with Portugal, you would have been absolutely wrong because Brazil is the answer. I wanted to give you an attack.
Oh my God. I remember
All right.
that.
So you've answered 2 questions correctly, and we have 3 questions to go.
Okay,
Let us go. So I am still asking from sport,
Oh,
and the question I'd like to ask you from sport is I had this question up before. Give me a moment. Yes.
why are we doing sports?
Well, the last 2 will be from other.
Okay.
What sport is played on a course with 18 holes?
18 hole. Isn't that
Yeah.
golf?
Are you sure? Because you have been getting all the questions, you might just feel this one.
18 hole. That's golf.
What sport is played on the course with 18 holes?
Golf.
If you chose golf, I am sad to announce to you
I don't know. I really don't.
that you are correct. It is correct. It is golf.
Oh, no.
It is golf, and golf is the right answer where you play 18 holes. Now we're going to the last 2. You've scored 3 out of 3, so you are already 60 points. But let's see. The last 2 is question on geography. How well do you know geography?
They don't do geography in Canada, only in England. Okay,
England.
let's go.
Let's go. What is the largest continent in the world? There are options. You do have
I have
options.
no clue.
Option one is Africa. Option two is Asia. And option three is Europe. Africa, Asia, Europe. What is the largest continent in the world? Option one, Africa. Option two, Asia. Option three, Europe.
No, it's not Europe.
It's not Europe. Okay,
Definitely
so
not
you've
Europe.
eliminated one option. You have two more, which is Africa and Asia. Which is bigger?
Ah, Africans have Asia. I don't know. What was the first one?
What is the largest
What's the
continent
other
in
two?
the
Asia or
world?
Africa?
So you've eliminated one by yourself, Asia or Africa.
Any, mini, miny, mo, catch a fish and make it go. Is it that
You
bloody
can
thing?
do 50-50. You can eliminate two incorrect
No, we
ones.
already have two. You only have two left. So 50-50 is gone.
Asia,
You
Africa.
can
No,
eliminate one.
Asia, Africa.
Is that your final answer?
No, Asia. No, she's laughing. Okay, Asia, Asia.
I said, Bolu. Lami, why are you laughing?
Oh,
You just be laughing, laughing. Like one day it is you that will put on the hot spot.
Okay, so let's go with Asia. She's laughing. Were you? Or
Is that
Africa?
your final
Lani.
answer? I need to
Yeah,
get the last.
Asia, because she's laughing. I'm going with.
Well, finally, you've gotten three questions right, but unfortunately, I'm sad to announce to you
Oh,
that the
forget.
largest continent actually is Asia.
Oh, I said Asia.
You're correct.
Oh, okay.
You're I don't like to give art, distribute
Oh,
art.
correct like that.
oh my God.
Asia
I
is the correct answer. Asia is larger than
is it?
Africa, larger than
I thought
every
I
other
was
country.
just doing either one. I was just guessing. Either.
But you were correct. You were correct. The last question before we go today, ma'am, is what is the capital city of Japan?
Hmm.
Hmm. What is the capital city of Japan? Did you notice that nobody in the comment section will put your answers? All of them they don't know. They don't know any answer. But
I.
Lami, why are you looking at Google?
I
Why do you
have
want to
no
analyze
clue.
me
I
now?
catch you.
I just
I
want to
catch
learn
you.
something.
Sorry, sorry.
There are
Is,
options.
is Hong Kong, China, or Japan? I get them both mixed.
Well, Hong
No,
Kong is
no.
a country.
The,
Japan is a country.
no. The World Cup was in Tokyo. It's Tokyo.
You're catching up small, small. So, what is the capital of Japan? The capital city of Japan. There are options. I could give you options if you want.
Options, please.
Option one is Singapore. Option.
Oh, no, there was no game at Singapore. Go on.
Now let me finish the option. You have three. I'll give you three options. Choose one. Option one is Singapore. Option two is Shanghai. Option three is Tokyo.
Tokyo Games. There was no games in the other two countries. Shanghai is a movie. There was no game there.
So you've
Singapore.
eliminated Shanghai. You've eliminated Singapore.
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 No, there was
Singapore.
games in Tokyo. There's usually
Singapore.
games in the capital.
Were you there?
No, I didn't go. No, I didn't go. But there's usually games in the capital.
Mm.
Tokyo Games.
Is that your final answer? I like the way you answer your questions.
Tokyo, it's sports. Tokyo, the games took place in Tokyo.
Great. So that means Tokyo is the capital of Japan. Is that what you're saying? Just to be clear.
Shanghai, no, Singapore. What's
If
Singapore?
it's Shanghai, you might be close to the answer. Don't
I
let
don't
me.
know. I don't know. I thought it was Tokyo. I don't know.
You have to choose one. Choose one with your full chest and let me tell you whether you got it or yes. Shanghai,
Shanghai Games. Shanghai doesn't have games.
Singapore, Tokyo.
Singapore doesn't have games. The
Okay.
Tokyo Games. I know Tokyo Games.
So, Tokyo is your final answer. Ladies and gentlemen, I am sad to finally announce that if you had chosen Shanghai, you would have been Absolutely incorrect.
So there's
If
no games. It's Tokyo Games. It's the Tokyo Games. There's games in Tokyo.
I like the way that you put with your full chest that it is Tokyo. Ladies and gentlemen, you
Eh,
are absolutely correct. It is Tokyo. Tokyo is the
Was
capital
there games
of
in Tokyo? Was
Japan.
there games in Tokyo?
There were games in Tokyo. Yeah, one of the World Cup was played in Tokyo, and then the
5
Olympics
out of
too
5.
was in
In your
Tokyo.
face, Fola.
In my
In your face.
face. All right, thank you so much, man, for coming on the show. Thank you for coming again in 2 weeks' time. We appreciate you. We will
Thank
see
you for
you.
having me. Thank you
We
for
have
having
to
me.
talk about prevention. We have to talk
Yes.
about rehabilitation. It's very important. I also have
Yeah.
other questions for you. Don't worry. Next week, next 2 weeks rather,
Mm.
we would not be asking this question because you already passed.
Yes,
Five.
yes, yes.
You
We're
are
nice
five
like
star.
that.
5 star general. Please add that to your ranks already. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
4
much
out
for
of
coming.
5.
Any
Thank you
last
so much,
word?
guys. Thank
Any
you.
last
Thank
word
you.
for our fans and our audience right now?
I think the final thing I'd like to say is no matter what you're going through, don't do life alone. You
Mm,
know, God never
mm,
designed us to be alone.
that's
And
right.
there's always help there's help for anything. So don't wait until the house is actually burning to get help.
Mm, mm,
Save it, prevent it, protect it.
mm, mm. And Lami.
No, honestly, it was, especially because of the kind of topic it was, I wasn't
Yeah,
exactly sure what the tone or the mood of the conversation would be,
same here.
but it was still as light-hearted as it was still, impactful.
That's
It
right.
was beautiful. I learned a lot. Thank you so much. We really
Mm,
appreciate it. And for choosing to come back again, because this is really important.
it is.
20,000 responses, calls that the police have to respond to in a year means that people are going through stuff like this, and we should
Yes.
be talking about it.
We
So
should be
thank you
talking
so
about
much.
it, and that's why we brought you on. Just a quick one before you go, ma. Does Ruth House help men?
Yes, it does. We have one of the strongest men's programs for African men. And we actually have a program tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. on Zoom and YouTube.
Listen,
Yeah, so I
listen. It's
want
easy to
everyone to
find
join.
Ruth, man. If you're watching this broadcast
No, Bolo
anytime,
Adeyebo, he needs the help. That's why he wants to go.
that's our husband, though. Don't mind.
We also need men to come and work with us, volunteers. So
Yes, yes, and we'll do a real call out the next time. We
Yeah.
have overshot our today's show, but it was well worth it.
thank you.
We will be bringing you back. So next week there is no Friday night mix. There's so many activities for next week lined up, so we're not going to be here. But 2 weeks from now, we'll be having
Yeah.
our mommy again back with us to talk with us. It's been fun. It's been exciting talking with you. Tell you that, and it's also been educative, right? I've
Yes.
learned so much from just having this 1 hour chat with you.
Yeah.
Sorry, Omota, we have to go. All right, until we see you next 2 weeks from now. Have a pleasant evening.
Bye.